Welcome back to Trots TV. Time for 6 things we've learned. Robbie Morris is back with me. And Robbie, I thought this week we'd discuss big stables. And the reason for that is the massive week that Natalie Rasmussen and Mark Purdon had. I think they had 7 winners on New Zealand Cup Day. They had 3 second placings as well. And the influence that big stables have on our sport. And I'll start by saying, look, it's the nature of the beast. There is always going to be big stables. People are going to have success, and therefore owners want their horses in those big stables. But I thought in the back of my mind, well, I don't know if that's the case when it comes to big races, because do big stables win all the big races? And you know, I keep thinking of, there's always the little horse, the little trainer with the one horse that bobs up now and again and wins races. So I went back and had a look at the last 10 Miracle Mile winners and the last 10 Inter-Dominion winners, and there hasn't been small stables win those races recently. Like, obviously, James Rattray, he's only a small trainer. He's only got a small team. So he's won both with Bowtide. But then you look back in the Miracle Mile list, Benny Hill, when he won it with Monkey King, I think he only had 60 starters that season in New Zealand, so you'd class him as a small trainer. And the only other one in the last 10 winners has been Peter Rickson with Divisive. Yeah. On the other side of the coin, the Inter-Dominions, last 10 years dominated by big stables. Gary Hall Sr. With I'm the Mighty Quinn, Natalie Rasmussen with Black's a Fake. Now, keeping in mind, if you wanted horses with Natalie Rasmussen back in those days, you were effectively having it trained with the Grant Dixon team. Yeah. They were training together. And Jeff Small with El Sue. So the last 10 Inter-Dominion winners, bar James Rattray, so 9 out of the 10 have been won by big stables. And I think that is why big stables continue to get bigger and flourish.
Yeah, I think it's big stables, and like you mentioned on Mark Purdon and Natalie Rasmussen, New Zealand Cup Day was just unbelievable. Like, big stables, my first thing with big stable is communication. You got to have it'd be easy to sit there and say, I don't have time to ring that owner today, I'll ring this one. But you find, especially use Mark Purdon as an example, his communication skills would be second to none. And I think that's what helps a lot of big trainers go. And then in turn, owners want to be there, owners want to have their horses. And then when their winners start coming, owners start to give them more and more horses. That's just the way the ball rolls.
And, you know, it's quite open. You're part of a big stable. Kerry Ann Turner trains a large team. You work with Kerry Ann, you drive for the team. So I guess that's something, you know, you guys work hard on too. Your communication, it's got to be top.
Definitely, like we get horses from all around the state, and you do. You got it. It's not just about the one good horse. You've got 30 good horses really, and that's because every owner wants their horse to be treated like the good horse. We all know that some have got more ability than others, but that's life. You've got to be big on communication skills. You've got to talk to the owners. You've got to tell them where you're at, for a big stable to survive, anyone that's running a big stable, that's what they'd be doing second to none.
You can understand why owners want to go to a big stable. I mentioned it before. You know, my first stat suggested that winning those big races, it does help if you're in a bigger stable. I went back and just had a look at the biggest stables in Australia at the moment and had a look at their season stats. Shane Tritton, he's won 55 of 184, so he's got a strike rate of about 1 in 3. Steve Turnbull, 203 starters for the season. He's only got the 28 winners so far. That'll improve. That's about 1 in 7. Well, yeah, about 1 in 7. Gary Hall Sr., 203 starters for 57 winners. And then Grant Dixon has had 365 starters and 67 winners. So, you know, if you take out Shane and you take out Gary Hall Sr., you've got Grant 1 in 5, Steve 1 in 7, Kerry Ann and yourself 1 in 5.5. So I think you'd find that some of the littler professional trainers, they go at their 1 in 6. They just don't have as big a team.
Bigger number.
I've had horses with big stables. I've had horses with Lance Justice, and now my horses are trained by Neil Wardle, who's only got a very small team. I know I found it as an owner a little bit overbearing to have to ring Lance. He at that stage, he's dealing with a lot better horses than No Smoke and Joe Kohler, who was my trotter there, and I didn't want to be ringing him 4 or 5 times a week. Yeah. I had my horse work, and I think that is the beauty, what some owners see of being with a small stable. You know, I can be on the phone to Neil every second day. How did the horses work today? Are you happy with them? Where are we going to go next? Yeah. And that's, you know, I guess that's an attraction for some people to go to a smaller stable.
It is, and there's pluses and there's negatives. You can sit there and say you want to go to a smaller trainer because you've got the opportunity to talk to them more, or you can say I want to go to the big trainer because you've got a horse that's getting worked with 30, 40 others, can get worked instead of the one person working his horse by itself, or if you can work in with someone else, it's getting work with 2 or 3 each hobbling. So there's pluses and there's negatives. Big name trainers, I think people can look at it and say, oh, they're good, they're bad. I believe they're good because you need trainers with a lot of stock. You need them because, one, they bring horses to the races, which we all need, and they bring people to our state. At the moment, you look at Shane, for instance, he's getting a lot of horses from Tasmania, Melbourne, anywhere. They're sending them because he's getting results. And people want their horses getting results. That's just life. So we need big name trainers to get horses to New South Wales, same as people send their horses to Grant Dixon in Queensland. Big name trainer, very good trainer, consistent as the day's long. So you send your horse to Grant Dixon in Queensland. Same as Gary Hall in Perth. Each state needs their own group of big name trainers, and it's been like that for years and years. So I can't see it changing now.
It becomes a marketing tool, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because then I guess maybe some wealthy business people, they sit on the outside, they go to the trots for the first time, they say, oh geez, I wouldn't mind getting involved in this, and then they say, well, who's the leading trainer? So you need that star trainer to and the big name trainer, a bit like Chris Waller in the Gallops.
Yep.
That's where you want to invest your money. Third one, and this is a drawback on having big stables, multiple runners in races, and it all comes back to the stewarding in each particular state. And if there is team driving going on and it becomes to the point where it's over the top, then the stewards need to step in and penalise harshly, because as soon as the penalty becomes too harsh for what they're doing, what is happening in races, and I'm not suggesting there's any terrible stuff going on at the moment that we haven't seen happen before, but if they penalise it and penalise it harshly, it's going to stop people from doing it.
Well, it's like anything. I think as a driver, don't see it happening a lot. And I think you're 100% right. If the stewards think there's anything untoward, they should deal with it the way they think and deal with it harshly.
And just going back to that, to sort of expand on that point, you probably know better than I would how hard it is. You've got to go and tell one group of owners, like, oh, look, this week we're sort of giving you a buy because we put... Owners won't cop that.
No, it doesn't.
They're paying big money. They want every opportunity to win the race as well.
Yep.
They don't want to be saying, right, we're coming back next week. Don't worry about this week. That happened in the past. That doesn't happen anymore. The amount of money that people are paying stops all that happening. And I think if it does happen, the stewards just have to crack down and then bang, it's gone again.
And big trainers don't do that because it's bad for business. You don't want that. You want all your horses, they're all drawn different barriers, they all have their own game plan that you discuss with their owner and their trainer and their driver, and may the best horse win. It's pretty simple stuff. So I think that's the way it pretty well goes. And like you said, if there's anything there that the stewards have to see, I'm sure they'll see it.
What's your final point?
My final point is big name trainers with a linked driver. You see it over and over again. You got Belinda with Luke, Gary Hall Sr. and Gary Hall Jr. Lance Justice, when he was airborne, had Lance Justice. I know it helps me and Kerry Ann having 2 drivers. I know Kerry Ann does most of the training side of things, but it definitely helps having 2 drivers when we get horses.
When the Fitzies were
Paul
flying.
Fitzpatrick, and you had Gavin and Blake and Cameron. They were airborne because they had linked good drivers. And owners, especially big owners, don't want... The only thing with little trainers, and talking about Neil with you earlier, when Neil, I've driven a few for Neil, I know Blake, we generally drive the majority of them, but he can't get us all the time because most of the time Blake's got his own or Kerry's got her own, and that's the thing. You see a lot of big name owners going to big trainers that have got a linked driver. I think that's a massive plus, and I think that's why you do see, because you don't find many big trainers that don't have a big driver driving their horses all the time.
Yeah, and that normally, once that trainer is starting to improve and come through the ranks, you'll normally find a driver quickly linking.
It just happens, exactly.
And look, it's not only do big trainers have the one good driver as well, or the one big name driver. You look at the success of David Morris recently.
Yeah.
He's obviously linked up there with Shane Tritton a little bit and driving the second stringers, and I actually think that's helped his outside driving as well. He's picking up drives for other stables, and it's improved his driving And once again, you bring back the point. It's hard to get your services sometimes because they're linked to those big stables. So therefore, owners say, well, gee, I want Blake Fitzpatrick to drive my horse. Well, if Blake's going to drive your horse, you've nearly got to have it trained by Blake, or it's got to be trained by Paul.
Exactly. And you look at David, and he's worked, and I know myself, when he started off, it was a little bit slow for him, but he's worked hard, and he's got them few of them nice drives for Shane, and they've built up. And another thing, and David will tell you himself, it helps with that junior claim. When you've got that junior claim, then you start getting drives without the junior claim, and if you can get a run-up, when you lose your junior claim like David, he will then keep going. And that's a big plus in the industry, and I think it's a good for all the young people. The junior claim is a massive boost for them, and if they can keep their momentum going through it, and they can link with a good enough stable like David has, which is Shane's, like the third stringers sometimes aren't the worst ones. So that's a big plus.
It's interesting. There are definitely positives and negatives on both sides of the tail with big stables. And that's what we've learnt this week after the massive performance by Mark Purden and Natalie Rasmussen, New Zealand Cup Day, big stables and what we think.
This program was brought to you by Harness Racing New South Wales and the New South Wales Harness Racing Club. This has been a Harbour Television production.